When my family ignored my success, I threw a party just to show off my fortune. I watch my mother's face when she walks into the house, and I know the exact moment she realizes this is not a cute little apartment like she'd pictured. Her eyes go straight up to the double-height ceiling, then to the glass wall that opens out onto the terrace, then to the view city lights spilling out like a circuit board. She stops mid-step, one hand still clutching the bottle of supermarket wine she thought was appropriate to bring, and actually stumbles. My dad bumps into her back and mutters, "Jill, keep moving." But he's already craning his neck too. Behind them, my brother Mark whistles low. "Holy crap, Nin," he says. "You didn't say it was like this." His girlfriend is already taking her phone out, angling for the best angle of the living room with the catered grazing table in the background. The music is soft but expensive sounding, the kind that feels like it should come with a dress code. My palms are sweating, even though the aircon is set low. I can feel every detail like it's highlighted. The weight of the watch on my wrist, the cool stem of the champagne flute I'm pretending not to cling to, the way my heels click too loudly on the polished floor as I go to greet them. It was exactly 11 months before this that I sat in this same city, in a very different room, squinting at my laptop in the blue light of 2 a.m., while my family group chat blew up about my brother's promotion. Mark had just been made assistant branch manager at a chain gym, and my parents were treating it like he'd won a Nobel Prize. My phone pinged over and over. Photos of him in a slightly too big suit. My mom's paragraphs about how hard work pays off. My dad's, "This is only the beginning, son," speech typed out like he was at a podium. I sent a "congrats, proud of you" message, then went back to refreshing my email, waiting for confirmation that the deal I'd been killing myself over had actually gone through. When the email finally came, "We're in. Looking forward to working together." I sat there in silence for a minute, letting the words sink in. 3 venture capital firms, 7 months of pitching, 17 versions of a deck. I'd just closed my first real round of funding for the software company I'd built from my cramped studio apartment. It was mid-6 figures. It meant I could hire staff, stop freelancing on the side, maybe sleep more than 4 hours a night. It meant, basically, that the thing my parents still referred to as that app thing you do had been taken seriously by people whose job it was not to waste money. I screenshotted the email. Heart pounding, I flipped to the family chat. My thumb hovered, then I dropped the screenshot in with, "Big news on my end too today." The read receipts came almost instantly. 3 little circles, then my mom. "Wow, so exciting. Did you see the photo I put of Mark and his boss?" Followed by another shot of my brother holding a novelty Employee of the Month certificate. My dad reacted to my screenshot with a thumbs-up emoji, then went back to crafting some long message about how proud he was of Mark setting an example for the younger cousins. That was it. I told myself they didn't understand the significance, that they weren't business people, that raising startup capital is abstract if you've never met anyone who's done it. But there was this acid little voice inside me going, "You explained it. You literally sat them down at Easter and drew a diagram on a napkin." They just decided it wasn't real. Growing up, Mark was always the achiever in ways our parents recognized. He played sports. He had a million friends. He dated girls my mother could gush over at church. I was the one with mismatched socks and notebooks full of ideas. The weirdo who spent lunchtimes in the computer lab teaching herself how to code because we couldn't afford the fancy summer programs. My parents weren't cruel about it. They were just uninterested. When I got high marks, they said, "Good job. Keep it up." When Mark scored 1 goal in a muddy Saturday game, we all went out for ice cream. When I decided not to go to university and instead took a job as a junior developer at a tiny startup, my dad didn't talk to me for a week. "You're throwing away your future," he said at the kitchen table, stabbing his fork into his potatoes. "You'll be stuck making apps for phones while your friends become doctors and lawyers." "I like making apps," I said. "And they pay me." He shook his head, disgusted. "It's not a real career." Fast forward a few years. The tiny startup folded. I took freelance work. I built little plugins and productivity tools on weekends, small things that solved annoyances I saw people complaining about online. One of them, an ugly, bare-bones little Chrome extension that helped remote teams track their time zones and schedule across different countries, took off. People kept downloading it. Then they started emailing me asking if I could add features. Then a small company asked if I could build a version just for them, with their branding, for money that made me double-check I was reading it right. I incorporated. I built a website. I turned the extension into a full product. I tweet promoted it, posted in forums, carefully so I wouldn't get banned for spamming, begged for feedback. Slowly, the trickle became a stream. User numbers went up. Then came the funding. The deal was small by tech standards, but huge by mine. Enough money to hire 2 full-time developers and a support person. Enough to move out of my shoebox rental with the moldy bathroom and into a place where I didn't have to store my laundry detergent in the kitchen. Enough to feel like maybe I wasn't just playing pretend. I took my parents out to dinner to tell them properly. You know those mid-range restaurants with bare brick walls and exposed filament lights and menus on clipboards? One of those. It was a big deal for me. I'd never picked up the check at a restaurant with my parents before. So it's a loan? My mom asked, frowning at her salmon. No, I said, for what felt like the 10th time. It's an investment. They give us money now in exchange for a percentage of the company. We use it to grow, to hire people, to build stuff faster. If we do well, their share becomes worth more later. And you have to pay it back? My dad pressed. Not like a bank loan. They're taking a risk. If we fail, they lose their investment. He looked unconvinced. Sounds like gambling. Well, yes, I said, trying to keep my voice light. But I'm the horse they bet on. That's the point. He just grunted and changed the subject to Mark's gym. My mom asked if the company could ever be sold, like on Shark Tank. I said, maybe one day. And she said, well, make sure you don't forget us when you're rich. As if that was already a foregone conclusion and not something she was quietly mocking. The weird part is, I didn't start off wanting their validation. I started off wanting rent money and the ability not to panic every time a bill came in. But success is a strange drug. Once you get a taste, you start noticing who's applauding and who's looking at their watch. The year my company broke 7 figures in revenue, Mark failed his certification exam for the 3rd time. My parents still threw him a, "We're proud of you no matter what" barbecue. When I casually mentioned over paper plates of sausages that I'd hired 3 people in the last quarter, my dad said, just be careful not to grow too fast. Small and steady wins the race. At Christmas, my aunt cornered me by the dip and asked if I'd found a nice little office job yet or still doing the computer thing. I said, I run my own company. And she laughed and said, you sound like my son. He has an Etsy store, bless him. It built up, little slight after little slight. The time my parents missed the launch event for our new product because they were too tired, but somehow had energy to drive 2 hours to see Mark's new apartment the same week. The time my mom proudly showed me the "My Son the Manager" mug she bought, saying there wasn't one for girl who does something with coding, haha. The way they told people I worked from home with the same tone you use for someone who sells candles on Facebook. Then, about a year after the funding, something big happened. A very large, very well-known company decided they wanted to buy us. Not fully, not a total acquisition, but enough to bring us under their umbrella and give us access to their resources and customer base. The offer was life-changing money for me, millions. Not the kind of numbers I'd even really let myself picture before. I got lawyers. I got an accountant. I didn't tell my family until it was signed because I didn't want to deal with their skepticism or their "don't count your chickens" speeches. When the money hit my account, I sat on my bedroom floor and cried. Not because I suddenly felt rich. I mostly felt terrified. But because I thought, this is it. This is the thing. This they'll have to see. Reader, they did not. I bought a modest but nice car. My dad commented that it was a bit fancy for someone your age. I mentioned in a call that I'd finally paid off my student loans from my one ill-fated semester at university. My mom said, oh, that's good. You've always been so responsible with money. Then pivoted to telling me that Mark was thinking of asking his girlfriend to move in. Finally, one evening on the phone, my mom said it outright. We're just not sure what you want us to say, sweetheart. She sighed when I brought up again how big the deal was. It's lovely that you're doing well, but it's not like you're a doctor or anything. I stared at the wall. You realize, I said, slow and flat, I made more last year than a lot of doctors, right? That's not the point, she said. Doctors help people. So do I snapped. I employ 12 people who can pay their rent because of what I built. I solve problems for teams that literally operate hospitals and charities and remote clinics in different countries. It's not just me in my pajamas pressing buttons. She tutted. No need to get defensive. We love you no matter what. But I didn't feel loved. I felt sidelined in my own life. The idea for the party started as a joke. I was venting to my friend Mia over drinks. One of those nights where you've both worked too much and need to complain to someone who gets it. I could show up with a giant novelty check, I said, stabbing my fries. Or buy a billboard opposite their house that says, "Your daughter is successful, you cowards." Mia laughed so loudly the couple at the next table glanced over. You're ridiculous, she said. But honestly, do something. Not a billboard, but you're allowed to take up space in your own story. If they're not going to acknowledge it, find a way to make it undeniable. Like what? Printing out my bank statements? New house, she said immediately. Big one. Invite them over, make it fancy, make them see. I rolled my eyes. Yeah, okay. Let me just go buy a house as a petty visual aid. But the thing is, I had been thinking about buying a place anyway. Something that wasn't a rental, where I could knock a nail in a wall without emailing anyone. Up until then, I'd been cautious, almost weirdly frugal, like I was afraid the money would vanish if I acknowledged it. I still made budget spreadsheets. I still had a cheap phone plan. The idea of actually living in something luxurious felt wrong. The following week, my accountant and I went over my finances. You can afford to buy, she said matter-of-factly. Comfortably, even if the market drops. Even if your salary stays exactly where it is. What if it all goes away? I asked. It won't all go away overnight, she said. And if you wait until you're sure, you'll never do it. There's no such thing, Nina. You've done the careful thing. You're allowed to live in a place that doesn't have peeling paint. So I started looking. I told myself it was purely practical. An investment, stability, a base for the next chapter. But I'd be lying if I said that. Somewhere at the back of my mind, there wasn't also a little voice saying, wait until mom sees this. It took 4 months. 4 months of scrolling through listings, walking through stale-smelling hallways, meeting real estate agents who either talked past me to my male COO or called me young lady, like they were doing me a favor. Then I found it. A renovated warehouse apartment perched over the city, all light and space and polished concrete. 3 bedrooms, a terrace, an actual view instead of a parking lot. The first time I walked in, something in my chest shifted. It didn't feel like a show home. It felt like a life I could grow into. A place where I could throw dinners and fall asleep on the couch and watch storms roll in. A place that would make it very, very clear that I was not still in that little place with the creaky stairs, as my aunt liked to say. I bought it. The numbers made sense. The mortgage payment was easily coverable by my salary. I furnished it slowly, intentionally. Good couch, decent dining table, art from local artists, not just generic prints. My friend who does interiors helped me pick things that felt like me, not like a magazine. Then I planned the party. Officially, it was a housewarming and belated birthday combined because I'd been too busy to do anything for my actual birthday. Unofficially, it was a carefully orchestrated exercise in pettiness. I hired a caterer. Not over the top, the kind that does nice grazing tables and tapas. Not champagne pyramids. I booked a bartender to make cocktails so my guests wouldn't spend the night opening bottles. I told friends to dress however they wanted, but asked family to maybe go a bit smart so they wouldn't feel weird. I invited everyone. Parents, brother, cousins, aunts, uncles. People from my old neighborhood who still thought I did something with websites. I also invited my work team, my closest friends, and the mentors who'd helped me through the startup chaos. I wanted the contrast, if I'm honest. I wanted my family to see me in the context of the world where I actually lived. As someone people trusted, not just their quirky eldest. The day of the party, I woke up absurdly early. I went through every room, straightening cushions that would soon be squashed, lighting candles that would burn down to messy wax. I put on music and then turned it off, worried it was too much, then turned it back on because the silence was worse. I showered, changed, and changed again. Outfit number 3, a simple black jumpsuit that made me feel like myself. Plus the one splurge pair of shoes I'd bought and never worn finally felt right. The first guests were friends and coworkers. They oohed and ahied appropriately, but also in a way that felt normal. Some had followed the house hunt. Some had seen worse places with me. They grabbed drinks, leaned on countertops, flopped on the couch. It felt like a home. When the intercom buzzed and my phone flashed, "Mum," my stomach did a weird flip. I went to meet them in the lobby personally, because I wanted to see the look on their faces from the very start. Which brings us back to the double-height ceiling, the supermarket wine, the stuttering steps. Wow, my mom says now, still half whispering as if a sales assistant might jump out and tell her not to touch anything. This is very modern. It's like a hotel, my dad adds. He says it like that's a criticism. Check out the balcony, Mark says, already sliding the door open. Babe, get a photo of me out here. I hug my mom. She feels smaller than I remember. Welcome to my place, I say. I can't help the tiny bit of emphasis on the my. She pulls back and looks around again. You rent this? I own it, I say, maybe too quickly. Well, me and the bank. Mortgage, but yeah, it's mine. Her eyebrows shoot up. You bought a place? Here? Yes, I say. That's why this is a housewarming. She presses her lips together. You didn't say it was. Like this. You didn't ask, I say, then immediately wish I hadn't, because her face tightens defensively. People drift in around us, coats and voices and smells of aftershave. My coworkers arrive in a little pack, greeting my parents politely. You must be Nina's mom. We've heard so much about you, my COO says, because she's a people person and knows how these events work. My mom smiles that tight smile she uses on strangers. All good, I hope, she says. We still don't really understand what you all do, but she always loved her little computer games. I see my COO's eyes flick to mine for a split second. I shrug invisibly. It's fine. It's not fine. The party fills up. The bartender does his thing. People move through the space, exclaiming over the view, the kitchen, the cool light fixtures. Mark finds the Sonos and pushes the playlist up a notch. My cousins take selfies in my bathroom because it has that influencer lighting. At one point, I find myself in a little cluster. My parents, my Aunt Karen, my Uncle Rob. They're holding plates of food they've picked at suspiciously. So this is all from your computer business? Aunt Karen asks, waving her fork in a circle to indicate the apartment. Yes, I say. The sale last year made it possible. I also pay myself a decent salary now. I always told your mother you must be doing well, she says, even though I'm pretty sure she did the opposite. You never have time to babysit. Uncle Rob chuckles. I saw something online about your company, actually, he says. My firm uses your thing. What was it called? Time zone sync or something? My head snaps toward him. Seriously? He nods. Yeah, someone in IT rolled it out. Makes meetings less of a nightmare. Your name was on some internal email. I thought, hey, I know that surname. There's a tiny flicker in my mom's eyes. Oh, really? She says. And you didn't think to mention that? I ask him, but I'm smiling. He shrugs. Didn't want to inflate your ego. This is why no one in this family knows what I do. I say lightly. You're all allergic to compliments. I move away before the conversation can sour. Throughout the evening, I watch my parents the way you watch a live feed camera. My dad spends a long time looking at the view, hands in his pockets, saying nothing. My mom alternates between complimenting the decor and making little chew noises at the price of things when she thinks no one's listening. At one point, she actually turns over a plate to see the brand, then shakes her head, muttering, ridiculous for something you eat off. I should be enjoying myself. And I am, in moments. When my friends clink glasses with me in the kitchen and tell me they're proud. When my lead developer makes a cheesy little toast about how far we've come. When my neighbor, whom I barely know, pops his head over the fence to say he likes my taste in music. But under it all, there's this constant buzzing. Are they impressed yet? Do they see me? Is this enough? Around 10, when people are tipsy and the grazing table has been decimated, I gather everyone's attention for a quick speech. Mia gives me a, you sure? Look. I nod. This is the stupid, petty heart of the whole thing, and I'm going to see it through. Hey, I call out. Can I say something really quick? The room quiets in that messy way parties do. Pockets of shushing, a few lingering whispers. I stand near the kitchen island, fingers curled around my glass. My heart is hammering, but my voice comes out clear. Thank you all for being here. I start. Really? When I moved into my first place, it was a tiny studio where you could touch both walls of the kitchen at once. The idea of having enough people in my home to constitute a fire hazard was aspirational. A ripple of laughter. So this feels surreal, and I'm grateful. I glance at my parents. My mom is watching me with that polite blankness she uses when she doesn't know where a conversation is going. My dad's arms are folded. A lot of you know this already. I go on. But for those who don't, I started my company 4 years ago with no staff from my old couch. Last year we were acquired. It was a huge milestone for us. For me, it changed my life. And if I'm honest, I haven't always known how to talk about that with certain people. A murmur. A couple of my coworkers glance subtly at my parents. I take a breath. I grew up in a family where success looked a certain way. I say. Degrees, titles, job descriptions people recognized at barbecues. A few knowing chuckles. What I do didn't and sometimes still doesn't fit that mold. And that's okay. School report cards always said I was independent. Turns out they were right. More laughter. My mom smiles tightly, like she's not sure if she's being insulted. What I wanted to say tonight, apart from eat more, I over-catered, is just, I'm proud of this, of what I've built, of this home, this company, this weird life. And I wanted to mark it. Not online, not in some press release, but in a room with the people who knew me before I could spell JavaScript and before I had more than $20 in my account. I lift my glass. So here's to that. To making space for new versions of ourselves, even when the people who watched us grow up aren't entirely sure what to do with them. It's vague enough not to be an attack. It's pointed enough to be heard. People cheer. Glasses clink. Mia whoops embarrassingly loud. My team yells, "To Nina," like we're in a startup movie. My parents clap, politely, like I've just done a piece at a school assembly. Later, when the crowd has thinned and my feet hurt and I've loaded the dishwasher for the 3rd time, my mom finds me in the kitchen. "You didn't need to make a speech about money," she says, fiddling with a coaster. "It wasn't about money," I say. She gives me a look that says she doesn't believe me. "We're happy you're doing well," she says finally. "You know that, right?" "Do I?" I ask. I'm too tired to sugarcoat. "Because it doesn't always feel that way." "We're just not from your world," she says helplessly. "We don't understand apps and investors and all that. It's intimidating. It feels like bragging sometimes." "Talking about my life feels like bragging?" "Talking about numbers," she corrects. "You know your father. He was raised not to discuss money. And when you say figures we can't even picture." She trails off. "It makes us feel, I don't know, left behind." That knocks me back a little. I hadn't considered that angle. I'd been so focused on my own hurt that I hadn't looked at the fear under their dismissal. "I'm not trying to make you feel small," I say, softer. I wanted you to see me. To see that what I do is real. That it's not little computer games. That I worked really hard for this and I wanted you to be proud." "We are proud," she says, and this time her face cracks. "We just don't always know how to say it. With Mark, it's easy. Manager, promotion, everyone knows what that means. With you, it's like learning another language." "You could have tried," I say, instead of changing the subject every time I brought it up. She nods, eyes shining. "You're right. We could have." We stand there in the hum of the fridge and the distant chatter from the living room. My dad walks in, grabs another beer, senses tension, and starts to back out. "Dad," I say, "what do you think of the place?" He pauses, looks around. "It's very you," he says finally. "Big, complicated," I snort. "Is that a compliment?" He half smiles. "You did this on your own," he says. That's something. It's not the swelling, tearful, "we were wrong, you're amazing" moment I'd fantasized about when I signed the mortgage. It's small, awkward, real. After everyone leaves, the apartment is a mess. Glasses everywhere, crumbs ground into the rug, a rogue shrimp tail somehow on the bookshelf. I kick off my shoes and sink onto the couch, exhausted. Mia flops beside me. "So?" she asks. "Feel vindicated?" "Honestly," I say. A little, but also kind of empty. She nods. Yeah, that tracks. I thought if they saw all this, I gesture around, some switch would flip. Like, ah yes, our daughter is successful. We must now treat her accordingly. But they're still them. I'm still me. We moved the needle maybe 5%. 5% is something, she says. But the party was never really for them. No, she says. It was for you. To say out loud, I did this. To stand in it. To practice not shrinking. I lean my head back, staring at the ceiling. She's right. The petty part of me that wanted my mother's jaw to drop is still there. But it's quieter now. In its place is a different feeling. A strange, shaky pride, not just in the apartment or the bank balance, but in the fact that I centered myself even briefly instead of waiting to be invited to do so. The next morning, my phone buzzes. A text from Mark. Hey, party was sick. Proud of you, sis. For real. Also, can you send me that bartender's details? I laugh. It's not a huge thing, but it's more than I had before. I don't know if my parents will ever fully get what I do. They may always be more excited about promotions they understand than about term sheets and product launches. But I've stopped waiting for them to be the audience for my life. When my family ignored my success, I did something petty and dramatic. I threw a party just to show off my fortune. It didn't magically fix anything. It didn't turn them into different people. What it did do was force me to stop pretending that shrinking myself to fit their idea of humble wasn't hurting me. I still want their pride. I probably always will. But now, when I look around my home, the one I paid for, with a company I built, I hear another voice, a little louder than before. Mine saying, quietly but firmly, you did this. And whether they clap or not, that's worth celebrating.